This is an aerial photo of the Paugh house. At the upper right is the carriage house. Between the east wing of the Paugh house and the carriage house, on the right side of the picture, is the detached kitchen with a gravel driveway. At the far right, and parallel to the driveway, is a little bit of North Lane, a small street just wide enough for one car. As you can see, the house is built in the shape of a cross. This was one of the designs for Gothic revival houses, harking back to their cathedral inspirations. This is the front entryway from Center Street. This is the upper part of the front yard and the front of the house. This is what we would call the front porch. When it was raffled in 1860, after the tragic death of Parrish's fiancée, it was called a piazza. This photo shows the two doorbells. The original one is next to the front door, and the newfangled one is on the door. This is the east side of the house. On the left, in the foreground, is part of the pet cemetery. On the right, there's a bay window. It's opposite a faux bay on the west side of the house. Furthest back is the detached kitchen. On the side of the piazza is what is apparently a door or a shutter covering a door. In actual fact, it is a faux door opening into a plaster wall. Parrish, the architect and builder of the house, apparently wanted symmetry, as this matches the front door on the west side of the piazza. Also on the west side of the house is a faux bay, built in front of an open space under the stairs, probably to match the real bay on the opposite side. At the junction of the porch deck and the house wall, there's a young acanthus plant, one of many that have popped up around the property. Acanthuses have a fascinating history, and the leaves as well as the flowers have been used in art and architecture for thousands of years. They were especially popular in Victorian times for ceiling rosettes, and because of the popularity of William Morris for wallpaper. The Paugh house has a couple examples of acanthus in wallpaper, including a beautiful gilded one that was the second oldest of 11 layers of wallpaper in the front parlor. Here's a few of the many plants that have been in the yard for generations, a lasting legacy for the men and women who planted them. This is the faux bay on the west side of the house, opposite the real bay on the east side. Inside is a space in a small room under the stairs that goes to the upstairs. Lifting up the basement cover, the stairs to the cellar are exposed. This is what the raffle ad called a commodious cellar. I have some of the old gingerbread stored here, waiting to be attached again on the roof overhang. Also here are the original finials and pendants, because I had new ones turned from the beautiful first-growth redwood posts from the porch addition. This passage runs from the west side of the cellar to the east side. I'm not sure if this was part of the original cellar. Although the cellar doesn't look at all commodious, it had to be dug in solid rock by hand, maybe done by one or more of the local miners. Continuing along the walkway, we come to what we would call a patio, but the Victorians called a terrace or veranda. Past the pond, and between the shed, in the foreground of this photo, and the back porch of the house, we see the concrete and stone wall that was originally 11 feet tall and surrounded the addition. The attic of the addition went all the way to the upper driveway, as seen in Part 2 of the history of the William J. Paugh house. The stairs go to the carriage house. The small opening that can be seen at the junction of the wall and stairs is part of a larger opening covered by the stairway. We believe this to be a vent to a mine tunnel that runs across the back of the property from the Xylee mine, just up the road from us. We were told by Jean, Margaret Voss's daughter, that they dumped their trash down there for many decades. Their main tunnel was almost a half-mile in depth, but digging deeper became financially impractical. I dropped weighted string down the hole and never found a bottom. I'd like to drop a camera down there someday. The path from there leads to the old mine building next door. The part of the building in the foreground was built there by 1920. Further back, you can see stairs that go up to two rooms that were the paymaster's office of the Argonaut mine. This was brought down from the mine by Tom Burrow, sometime between 1920 and 1930, who bought the property and house in 1902, and whose family owned it until we bought it in 2010. Tom was a machinist for the Argonaut mine and a county supervisor. Shown here is Tom Burrow in this 1918 supervisor's photo op. They're posed in front of a Doble car. Tom's on the left. Out of the walkway, we see the back of the detached kitchen. When we first bought the house, there was a kitchen addition on the west side. Opposite the front of that addition, there was an old stone wall, and behind the wall, an old fuel tank from World War II was buried. Before the inheritors could turn it over to us, but after we owned it, the realtor wanted the fuel tank removed. To make a long story short, the company that removed the tank did it improperly, and the wall fell over and knocked the kitchen addition off its wood foundations and damaged it. The tank removal insurers gave us $40,000, which we used to build the detached kitchen. Detached kitchens were not unusual in mid-Victorian times to keep the heat, cooking smells, and fire away from the house. The original kitchen in the house was only 4 feet deep and 12 feet wide, as the cooking was done in the dining room. This old kitchen probably was just used to prepare the food. It may have had a dry sink with a hand pump. We see several of these pumps in the 1880 drawing of the yard, most likely used for irrigation. Looking along the passage between the house and the kitchen, there's a small addition where I keep some mementos from the house. At the front of that addition, and to the left, there's a nice washtub and wringer. For some reason, my wife doesn't use it, instead preferring some kind of electric doodad. Walking toward the little addition, I opened up the kitchen to show off the nice door and a glimpse into the kitchen. This little addition holds an interesting Victorian French stove, some colonial cooking stuff, a collection of oil-burning lighting lamps, and a hand-wrought fireplace set that was still by the fireplace when we took over the house. This is where the wood or coal is loaded into the firebox. This is the oven. More about this interesting oven in a minute. This is the ash pan. So what's interesting about this stove is how the heat is regulated. The oven is on a track, and to get it hotter or cooler, you just move it closer or further from the firebox.